Biswas, Sampa Biswas joining us online. She had missed it at that point of time. That particular session was an artful amalgamation of culture. Welcome, Seema. I'm Sampa. I hope you can hear us.
Yes, I can.
Thank you for waiting. Fortunately, we were already into the next session. Let me introduce Sampa Biswas, a PhD from Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, has taught in the National Museum Institute of History of Arts, New Delhi, Museology and Conservation and Restoration of Art, New Delhi, and at Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts, New Delhi. Her major publications include Indian Influence on Art of Japan, 538-1333 AD in 2010, Fudo Mayo in Art and Iconography of Japan in 2011, and Assimilation of Brahmanism into Buddhism 2017. Over to you, Sampa. You have 20 minutes to put out your thoughts.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Professor Narasimhan, for giving me an opportunity to speak here. And the title of my paper is The Uniqueness of Japanese Artistic Heritage, Reflection of Japan's Cultural Encounters with the Outside World from 538 to 1333 Common Era. I begin. It was notwithstanding the geographic distance that sets apart the two countries, Japan and India have shared close cultural relations over many centuries. Indian influence was experienced indirectly by Japan when Buddhism was introduced in early 6th century via China and Korea. Japan became acquainted with the sculptural representations of the Buddha through the Korean king of Paeche, Seongmyeong, who sent a mission to the Japanese court in 538 Common Era. An image of the Buddha in gold and copper, a number of Buddhist sutras, and several flags and umbrellas was brought by the Buddhist priests, which was gifted to the court. This episode marked the importation of the continental culture. The Buddhist iconic symbols originated in India, but the Indian Buddhist iconography in Japan received a new dimension. It was surcharged with a sense of aesthetics that the Japanese nation intrinsically possessed. The reflection of this refined taste are to be found in all branches of Buddhist art in Japan. It was only in the 7th century, through the great efforts and achievements of Prince Shotoku Taishi, that Buddhism and aspects of Asian civilization was deeply felt in Japan. Empress Suiko, who ruled 593 to 628 CE, was an ardent Buddhist nun, and after ascending the throne, she withdrew from an active part in government and appointed Prince Shotoku Taishi as the Prince Regent, who served in his capacity until his death. The pre-Buddhist art of Japan had a long history of evolution from the Archaic Age, that is Jomon period, Yayoi period, and Kofun period, spanning 10,000 before the Common Era to 538 Common Era, but did not show any trace of systematic and continuous development to prove that the archaic art had developed into Buddhist art. The earlier art did not have any direct connection in style or theme with the art produced in the later period. In Japan, there occurred a continuous flow of immigrants from the continent. Amongst them were artists and craftsmen whose contribution had been an important factor in the history of the development of art in Japan. They were the best teachers, and their presence among the learners of arts and crafts in Japan was the motivating force in creating what was to become the truly national art of Japan during the 8th century. It is quite certain, however, that the people of Japan possessed the originality of thought and imagination, which combined with skill, developed and refined over generations, understood and appreciated the higher form of the newly imported Buddhist art, and followed it in their own manner. These factors explain why Japanese art could make such dramatic and rapid progress within a very short time after the arrival of the Buddhist art into their land. This is previous. These three that you're seeing are what was being produced during the Archaic era. During the Jomon period, or Haniwa, as this is called, But in the Yayoi period, we see there is a slight difference because you have the geometric designs being produced. Kofun period, you see, is a soldier has been portrayed in this manner. Second now. The sphere of Buddhist art is unquestionably overflowing with a great number of sculptural and painted representations of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, and paintings taken from the life of Shakyamuni, as narrated in the Buddhist texts and from the Jataka stories, that is, the past life of Buddha. The unique development with a distinct and different aesthetic appeal can be discerned in different periods of art history. During Asuka period, these are the images that we're seeing are the images of Buddha, images of Shakyamuni Buddha, as well as Yakushi, or the healing Buddha. The middle picture is that of Yakushi Buddha, healing Buddha. And the first is that of Daibutsu, or the great Buddha, the first to be created in Japan. And then we are seeing Shakyamuni Buddha flanked by his two acolytes. During Asuka period, sculptural techniques and these sculptures were produced during Asuka period, 538 to 645 AD, a big jump from what we see, the art that was being created during the Archaic Age. During Asuka period, sculptural techniques and style were initially learned from Korea, that was already influenced by the Chinese form of religious art of the 6 dynasties period, Northern Wei, Western Wei, Eastern Wei period. That is till the 6th century, we can say, which was but the Chinese art was also surcharged with Indian cultural elements. Chief emphasis was on the spiritual aspect rather than the representational. Japanese characteristics of simplicity and elegance marked the sculptural style of this period. So the first image is of that of Daibutsu, or it is the oldest known sculpture of Buddha, made during 609 Common Era. This is a very large image. It reveals a Chinese inspired style. Probably it was made by a son of a Korean immigrant, Kuratsukuri no Tori. So this was called a Tori style. And the second we have, that is of the healing Buddha, or the Yakushi Buddha. And the third is that of Shakyamuni Buddha being flanked by 2 of his attendants. All the styles, all these images show strong Chinese influence. There's a sense of grandeur. This is mainly an Indian idea. The style of carving of the face in all the statues seem to be the same, with the same blocky face without any expression. And the pose is frontal, rigid. They lack movement. But they express an inner strength of spirit. And the clothes, the garments, the outer garments are highly stylized. Both the figures, yes. Now we come to these are the Chinese cave art, which inspired the early Japanese art of Asuka period. Next. This is the slide of Kudara Kanon and Guze Kanon, that they are 2 images of Avalokiteshvara, the most compassionate of the Bodhisattvas in Buddhism. These sculptures appear very untouched by any realistic conception of human body. These were the traits of the early Asuka period art. Both the figures are very slender and tall, but are considered to be the outstanding pieces of art. They represent Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, the universal savior. Many believe that the sculpture of Kudara Kanon, that is the first image that you are seeing, was made by a Korean artist from Paekche, or made under the influence of the Paekche school of art. The slenderness and the movement of the draperies, especially at the edges and at the side of the Guze Kanon, the sides, you can say that they are close adherent to the Longmen cave style and the Northern Wei dynasty of China. The sculptures were painted with colors of cinnabar, green, and blue. The Guze Kanon is the second image that you're seeing. It's in the Yumedono Hall and has close similarities with the sculptures of Eastern Wei or 6th century art of China. Next. This is the most beautiful sculpture most probably produced during the Asuka period. This is the dignified and noble Maitreya, or the future Buddha in Buddhism, called Miroku, from Chuguji Nanori and Koryoji Temple. Both are seated in contemplation, expressed in terms of calm and repose. Both are seated with one leg crossed over the other in half lotus position. In India, we call it Ardha Paryanka Asana, and the fingers of his right hand supporting his head. Both the figures appears to be in very pensive or thoughtful mood. The origin of this posture can be seen for the first time in Gandhara. That is the last sculpture that you're seeing, that is the Gandhara art. And before the last, the image is that from China. And the third image that you're seeing is that from Korea. One can see that the Maitreya image, the second image of Maitreya, which is kept in the Koryuji temple, is absolutely similar to the Korean Buddha Maitreya, which is you see in the third image. Maitreya, or the future Buddha, was extremely popular in Korea. Perhaps there was a special cult of Korea, as many beautiful images were produced by Korean artists in various provinces from late 6th to the 7th century. The meditating Maitreya was favored in China too. During the second half of 7th century, the vogue reached Korea probably by land and through Manchuria some decades later. The only difference between the two figures, the first two figures that we see, it lies in the headdress, that the Chuguji, or the first figure, has got hair on top, tied like two top knots. Next slide. As far as paintings of Asuka period are concerned, they must take a note of the Buddhist painting on the pedestal and doors of the portable shrine called Tamamushi no Zushi shrine, or the beetle wing shrine, which is kept in the Horyuji temple. Scenes of the Jataka or past life of Lord Buddha are painted on the four faces of the left side. Now what we're seeing, this is the first is the Tamamushi shrine, and on all the four faces, the paintings were taken from the life of Buddha. The painting that we are seeing in the second image, that is the story of the starving tigress, which is painted, and it's taken from the Buddhist Sutra of the Golden Light. The story goes as follows. Walking in the mountains, Lord Buddha, in one of his past lives, who was the incarnation of a bodhisattva, he went by the name of Brahma Prabha, came upon a starving tigress and her 7 cubs who were in distressed condition due to hunger. Brahma Prabha was courageous, selfless enough to lay down his life and be devoured. For this act of nobility, the bodhisattva became the Buddha in his future life. The painting of this episode depicts a rocky cliff on the left side where the prince takes off his clothes, hangs it on the branch of a tree, and his lower right, the prince is shown throwing himself down from the top of a cliff, and still further below, the prince is being shown lying down in the bamboo grove and getting eaten by the tigress and her cubs. This legend was often represented in Central Asia, Dunhuang caves of China, Longmen caves in China, and during the course of 5th and 6th centuries. The mode of depiction of various actions in progressive order on one surface is not Japanese origin or Chinese or Central Asian, but it is Indian painting, where important personalities appear more than once. For example, in the medallion on the railing pillars of Baharut Stupa, Madhya Pradesh, in the collection of Indian Museum of Kolkata, we see these reliefs depicted. One of the reliefs depicts the deer Jataka. In this similar narrative style, this form of continuous narration that is depicted in of the various actions in progressive manner is also extensively carved on the ancient monuments of Sanchi, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, and Mathura in India. The Nara period, this one picture that we are seeing is that of Sarnath Buddha during the Gupta period in India. Sarnath, the Gupta period tallies also with the Nara period in India, 645 to 794 CE. Nara period is called the golden period of Buddhist art. During this period, traditional arts and crafts of China had reached unparalleled heights. It was the Tang period, that was 618 to 907 AD. And by the importation from India, Central Asia, Persia were made richer. Japan had direct contact with China, and which brought her closer to the ultimate source of Buddhism and Buddhist art of Gupta period. Nara period art showed a new realism which had its root in the art of India. The figures are much fuller, rounded. The features poses of the Buddhist statues are serene and lifelike, in contrast to the mysterious and unrealistic art of the Asuka period. The artist seems to have struck a happy balance between the divine and the human ideal. In its style, sculptures of Nara period had showed great influence of Gupta period art of India, which had been introduced into China. The outstanding characteristics of the art of Gupta period was its classical quality. Images had acquired both delicacy and repose in India. The figures were generally represented in firm and upright postures, draped in almost transparent clothing, with folds conventionalized in string-like creases, curving from the shoulders, arms, and over the body and legs. Nihar Ranjan Ray had written, "The eyes of the Buddha with drooping eyelids, instead of looking out into the world, seems to look within, where everything is at rest in contemplative concentration." This aspect of contemplative concentration, etched in figures, sprang from the centuries of physical and intellectual effort of disciplined body and mind. The image that's represented either in seated or standing posture reached a sense of harmony, of proportion and design, and lent the sculptures an animated appearance. In Japan, this is one of the most famous paintings, a relationship between Horyoji wall paintings and Ajanta cave paintings. Now we see here the Bodhisattva holding a lotus in his right hand.
Sampa,
Yes.
could you please try to wind up? We are already running short of time for the next session.
Okay. So we can see here, over here, what we are seeing is a close relationship between the pictures, between the paintings of Amitabha in the painting of Horyoji wall paintings, the first painting, and the two which are below, that is the Padmapani in Ajanta caves, are very similar, the same figures witnessed in curves of the eyebrows, half-closed eyes, strongly modeled nose, curly black hair falling, and the supple fingers of the right hand of the Avalokiteshwaran in Horyoji paintings close to the Bodhisattva Padmapani in Ajanta. Next one. Yeah. But this is sculpture of Vairocana Buddha and Todaiji, dominating presence, very heavy set, looking grave rather than compassionate. And the side are the two lanterns where beautiful images of figures playing on the musical instruments have been shown. Especially the musical instruments have been shown is that of very, very strong Indian influence that we see. They are the divine musicians. They are carved on the lantern facing this great Buddha hall. Very refined features expressing innocence and majesty, posing full round faces, and they seem to move to them with the music that they're playing. Now we come to a very famous image of healing Buddhas flanked by his two attendants, Surya Prabha and Chandra Prabha, where strong Tribhanga poses you can see of the two side images, the two images which are presented on the side, which again shows with a slight gentle S-curved, again showing very great Indian influences. Now we come to the Shokanon, which is the first, which is similar.
Could you please get into concluding? Because I think you have too many things to say for too little.
Okay, I will just show you the slides. Look at Shokanon again, similar figure as that of the standing Buddha. And this is 1000 armed canon, which is again Avalokiteshvara, again taken, inspired from India. All the texts were written in India, and it is also said that it was being made by an Indian artist. Now we come to this image of lying Buddha, reclining Buddha, demise of the Buddha. This first seen in the Gandhara art, similar images, very distressed condition of his followers, of his disciples, who are also expressing the grief in the same manner as being shown in Gandhara art earlier on. Next one, please. Just these are that. Now we come to the concluding part. This is the image of two mandala paintings that we are seeing. First seen in Ajanta, now seen in Buddha in China, first in China and then in Japan. Here we're seeing Mahavairochana. The first image of the mandala painting shows the spiritual world, and the other is that of the material world, as a cosmos consists of both these fields, of both these thoughts. So they were being very popular in Japan. They were being worshipped for the protection of the realm, as mandala paintings are done in India also in the same manner for the protection of the realm. Next one. And now we are very interesting. This Chintamani Chakra Avalokiteshvara seated in the Maharaja Leela pose or in the Royalese pose. And we have the 11-headed or most compassionate Bodhisattvas who's standing here and with his very long arms again, portraying that of the Mahapurush Lakshana, which we have in Indian art. Looks like the same elements have been carved here too. Next one, please. And Brahma, not only Buddhist, but also...
You said concluding slides, and
these are the last ones, Brahma, and then you have got the images of Indra, even Vedic and and Brahmanical gods had come into the picture, had come, and they were also being revered, and we are seeing they are being portrayed. We can understand Bonten and Taishakuten, they are also being saying, okay, now we can see close cultural relations, which had then abiding relations between the, not only between the both countries culturally, but it also reflected on the art of the period.
Thank you, Sampa.